Hello everyone, today I will show you how to set up your Netgear router, RAX38. And before I start, I want to remind you that if my video will help you, you can buy me a coffee. I donate 50% of all coffee's purchases to animal shelters. Details can be found in the description below. So, start by turning on the router. Plug one end of the power adapter into a wall outlet. And plug the other end of the adapter into the router. Then press the power button. Once it's turned on, a light will illuminate. It may take a few minutes for it to completely turn on. Connect the cable from your internet provider or from your modem to the internet port. This port is usually a different color and is often labeled internet. Each cable should be inserted until it clicks. Now, you need to reset the router to the factory settings. Press and hold the reset button on the router for 10 seconds until the indicator lights on the router begin to flash. Sometimes, the button is located inside the router casing to avoid accidental pressing. In this case, use a thin object to press on it. The router will reboot, and the settings will return to the factory defaults. Connect one end of the Ethernet cable, which is provided with the router, into a LAN port. The other end into your computer's Ethernet card. Wait a few minutes for connection. Great, we've connected the router to your computer. Now, you will need to set it up. But first, I am going to show you another way to connect to the router if you do not have an Ethernet cable or if your computer does not have an Ethernet port. All you need to do is connect the router to the power adapter and the cable provided by your internet service provider. This will enable Wi-Fi. If your router is new and hasn't been set up yet, your Wi-Fi network will be called the same as your router. Your router has a unique Wi-Fi network name and password printed on a label. Connect to it. Great, you've connected to the router. Now let's start setting it up. First, open your web browser and type in the website address that you see on the screen. Use the address bar instead of the search bar. At the beginning, click here. Then read Netgear terms and conditions and click I agree button. And click Next. Click Next again. If your router's settings does not look like mine, it means that your router has a different firmware. I have created a video for every type of firmware. In the description below you can find all links to them. First thing you need to do is set up a new password. The password for the administrator is used for logging into the web interface of your router. Pay attention to the password requirements. Write the new password in the first field, and then duplicate the password in the second field. Next, select 2 security questions and write answers for them. You will need them in case you need to reset the admin password at some point in the future. On this page, you can customize your network name and password. Click Next. If your browser does not redirect after 2 minutes, reload the page. The next page contains the information needed to connect to a Wi-Fi network. If you are connected using the preset Wi-Fi credentials, it's time to connect using the new Wi-Fi credential. If you want, you can print them out. click Next. If the router hasn't had an update in a while, the next page may be a firmware update. If the new firmware is not available, click Next. After updating the firmware, you may be redirected to the Netgear website, where you can register your router. You can do it if you want to. I'm not going to do that, so I'm just going to close this window. Log into the router's web interface again if you were logged out of it. Enter the standard username, admin, and password that you created a few minutes ago. Press Sign In button. Close this window. In the upper right corner, you can change the language of the web interface of the router. To get the internet, go to Advanced. Setup Wizard. Press No. I want to configure the router myself. Then press Next button. On the next page, select the settings for the internet. In most cases, there are two options: connection with and without a login. Almost always, your internet connection will not require a login. All the information you need is in your internet provider's contract. If your internet connection does not require a login, or if you are not sure whether a login is required or not, select No. Leave account name and domain name unchanged. Select Get dynamically from ISP in the Internet IP address section. In the DNS section, select Get automatically from ISP as well. If your ISP only allows internet access to a specific MAC address, you will need to clone the MAC address of the primary computer. If you are unsure of these settings, choose Use Default MAC Address. Check again that your settings are the same as mine. And click Apply. In most cases, you will not need to clone the MAC address. But if you can't get an internet connection after the quick setup, I'll show you how to clone the MAC address later in the video. Now you must reboot the router. To do this, go to the router's web interface if you were logged out of it. Go to Advanced. Advanced Home. Click on the Reboot button and click Yes. After the reboot, wait a couple of minutes and try to Google something. If it doesn't work, check all the cables. They must be connected properly. Then log into the router control panel again. Go to Advanced. Setup. Internet Setup. And choose Use Computer MAC Address. Click Apply button. And then, reboot router again. Go to Advanced. Advanced Home. Click on the Reboot button and click Yes. After restarting, wait a few minutes and try Googling something. That's all. If my video was useful, please support my work. You can buy me a coffee. Half of all coffees I send to animal shelters. All details are in the description down below.